share the screen, the code. I will explain briefly, but not, I mean, you won't be spending a lot of time on it, maybe 10, 15 minutes maximum. Let me share the screen here. Okay, so we have this. Okay, I think I need to probably increase the font. So we have the bag implementation, right? So you needed to implement the bag interface. And if you look at the bag interface, you have it extend iterable double. So that is what you need to implement. The interface iterable double has one method which returns the iterator, which means you need to implement the functionality for the iterator. And the bag implementation is here. You are not supposed to change this existing code, but you had to add existing code. And so here is the first method, public iterator, double iterator. You have to implement this and you have to return an iterator. So I create a bag iterator object and the class is declared here. Iterators are implemented as inner classes. I think this is covered in ICS 240. It is part of the whole thing, but we repeat this in this class too. Iterators are implemented as inner classes. And so I have declared a private class bag iterator. There is no need for it to be public. And it implements iterator double so that this actually makes sense, this new bag iterator. And the only field I need is to refer to the current object to be returned. So I have a private int current index equals 0. Initially, I start at the first location. I have to implement two methods, has next and next. Has next makes sense if I haven't returned all the elements. So if current index is less than number of elements, there is something more to be returned. That is the first method. The second method looks at or rather returns the next element. So next returns the next element. If current index is equal to number of elements, it means there is nothing more, in which case you must throw a no such element exception. That is part of the iterator specification. If you look at the iterator documentation, you will see that you have to return, you have to throw an exception in that case. Otherwise, you are in legal range and you return the element at current index and you increment current index. That is the first question. Okay, second one is the step tracker. It had to have a constructor with the threshold, and you store that in, actually this should be an int, not an int. So you store it in an int variable. And there are methods that are called for by the specification. Those methods are add daily steps, active days, average steps. So here, whenever you have statistics for a day, you call add daily steps and you pass a number. And if it is more than or equal to the threshold, then you have one more active day. You always have to increment the day count. That is, you have added statistics for one more day. And the total steps count is now changed to by this much. So if you add, or if you have, let's say, 2,000 steps on a particular day, the total step count is incremented by that value. And Active days getter is very simple. You simply pass the number of active days. And average steps would be like this. If day count is equal to 0, you have to return 0. Otherwise, your program will crash. And here you need to, otherwise, in the more usual case, you divide the total step count by the number of days and return it as a double. That is the second question. The third one is asking you to create a hierarchy, a vehicle and car. The vehicle class has a field to store the price and warranty period. It could have had a field to store the number of passengers, but I wasn't very particular as to where you put it, but you had to have it. Given the price at construction time, vehicle stores the price and then computes the warranty period. It is either 1 or 2 depending upon the price. Then there are methods for getting and setting the price and warranty period. That's it for vehicle. And car extends vehicle. Given the price and number of passengers, this calls the superclass to store the price and determine the default warranty period through the vehicle class. And then get price is called to figure out what the price is, or you could simply use this price. Either way, it doesn't matter. You change the warranty period if you have at least $30,000 in price. Get the warranty period, add 1 to it, and set it as the new value. And you store the number of passengers here. And I have getter and setter for number of passengers. So all these questions essentially covered were actually topics covered in 141 and 240, but we reviewed most of these topics. And we are now going to get into new topics from even last week. We had, the week before actually, we had some new topics like adapter and singleton. Iterator you have seen before, and mediator. And you will be seeing more design patterns in the coming weeks throughout the rest of the semester. You'll be seeing lots of new topics. The thing could get a little busy in the next couple of weeks because we have a lot of topics coming, and they're all obviously new. So there's a lot of stuff packed in the next few weeks. So be prepared for that. Any questions on the exam? Anyone? All right. I am not going to spend much time on the subject matter this week. The reason being we have to form groups for the group project. So let me go ahead and show you the group project, and then we will form the groups. Let me stop this share and show you the group project. Okay, so this is due November 9th. So you have a little over a month. I think 5 weeks roughly, but you will need to start soon. Otherwise you will not finish this. What you have to do is implement a system, an object-oriented system that takes care of some of the operations of a small grocery store. It has members. I mean, if you want to shop, you have to be a member. And there are functionalities for enrolling a member, adding products, removing a member, retrieving member information about a member, then checking out a member's cart. So given a sequence of items, it will compute the total cost and so on. Then retrieve the information about a specific product. And then the grocery store is going to reorder stuff that needs to be reordered because their quantity is going too low. So when those shipments arrive, you have to put those back into the shelves and also update the quantity on stock. Then print the transactions, change the price, list members, products, orders, save and retrieve data, etc. So I think there might be a few typos here and there. So for example, this should have been 15 for help. Okay. Because I added an extra functionality here and some of those got a little, I mean, last minute I added this functionality. So there is a little, there might be a little inconsistency in places. So what you have to do is, after forming the groups, read this document. I know this, you haven't seen this document before. So you need to read this document, understand it, discuss it with your group mates. Maybe if you can get some time after the class exercise tonight and read this, and maybe not in great detail, and kind of talk among yourselves as to how to proceed, that would be a good start in this first week. I will give you more information as to how to proceed, but that is something you should probably want to do this week and or tonight actually. Try to get a skim through this and then talk among your group mates. Some of these things you will forget. I mean, because this is the first time you are seeing this. Excuse me. But if you have questions, you can ask in the coming weeks. You know, you are going to create a system, a command line system. There is no graphical user interface in this project. So the user will be entering commands by typing in a number like 1 for enrolling a member, 2 for removing a member, 3 for retrieving information about a specific member, etc., etc. And so you have these numbers associated with these business processes, and the commands should be corresponding to these, to the numbers that are given against the business processes. And 15 should be help. It simply displays a set of commands, and then 0 should exit the application. So that is how it should be when implemented. Okay, so you have to implement all this functionality. So that is one thing, and you have to implement it using good object-oriented techniques. It should not be it should not be a designed implementation that you get out of concepts in ICS 141 or even ICS 240. It has to be based on things that you learn here. It has to be consistent with the approach taken in the library system that we are covering this week and next week and so on. You can freely use the library implementation that I will be posting very soon. Okay. And I highly encourage you to use it, because then it will be faster. You will read somebody else's code and you will get that experience. So I would definitely urge you to use that. So that is about the final product. It has to also have some testing facility. Typo there. I need to correct. You should have a facility by which you automatically create at least 20 products and 5 members and test some of these business processes automatically. Okay, we will talk about that more maybe next week. Most probably next week, or even week after next, because you need to see a few other things to before you will have a clearer picture of what I am asking here. Then what you need to turn in on November 9th are 2 documents. One is a PDF document that contains use cases for 6 business processes. You don't have to submit use cases for anything else. A conceptual class diagram and sequence diagrams for implementing these use cases. I think I have put these use cases in bold, at least the headings, like, I hope I haven't gone wrong with that. 9, 12, 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, and so on. Okay. Then you also need to submit the physical class diagram. The class diagram may be too big to fit into one page. So what you could do is probably have the relationships shown on one page and the details of each class shown on other pages.
Professor, a quick question. In your document, it says, you're not going to accept anything in Word or any image or anything like that. So what, do you have a preference with software?
You should submit this as a PDF document.
No, but building the sequence diagrams and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Use some specific software, or is?
You can use Visio. It is available on MetroState, but if you haven't used Visio, I wouldn't recommend it, because it takes such a long time to learn. I have been using it for a couple of years now. Even now, I don't know whether I have made peace with it. I might have. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend that. There is a free. There is free document. What am I saying? Free software available. One of the applications I have used is called Dia. Maybe I have mentioned that over here. Dia is a pretty decent program. It is free. You can download it, and I have had some issues with it on Mac, but Word, it works quite well. In fact, in the book that I have written, that book that you're using, all the diagrams I drew initially in Dia, but of course, that is not what the publishers used to redraw them. So that is one thing you could use. Every semester, students find some other online stuff. I can't remember anything, the names of those pieces. I asked them, and I think Google or somebody has one. I could help you. I could try and help you with finding a good piece of software, but you might want to try Dia. But some students didn't like it. Some students used it. What you can do is you can type up all your use cases and any textual stuff in Word, create the sequence diagrams and class diagrams and conceptual class diagrams in a software like Dia, and then import all the pictures. You can insert those files into the Word document and finally create a PDF.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Then mistakes. So one thing I am insisting is that every student must write at least one use case and draw at least one sequence diagram. And you must label every use case and every sequence diagram with the name of the person who did the work. If somebody doesn't draw a sequence diagram or draw a use case, they will lose points. That particular student will lose points, not the group. The grading criteria is here. Analysis is worth 27 points. That is use cases, and then conceptual class diagram, etc. Then design is 36 points. See, there are only 6 sequence diagrams that I'm looking at. Similarly here, I'm only looking at 6 use cases. You can read the details here, and then we have 37 points for implementation. Okay. So that is the overall project, and you must submit an Eclipse Java project. Okay. Any overall questions on the project? Okay, and then what should you do in the first week, ideally? Try to do as much as you can, but what I would do is this. Tonight, if you have time after the class exercise, read this document. At least look at the big issues. You probably don't have to read every little thing tonight, but you should get a gist of what is to be achieved, and then talk among yourselves, exchange phone numbers, and set up a meeting plan for this week. You can create Zoom sessions using MetroState facilities. You can go to the homepage and then click on Zoom and create meetings, and you must meet this week. And what I would do is this. Oops, 1 second. What I would do is, in the next couple of days, get a good grasp of what is to be achieved. What are the business processes? And then allocate one use case per member. Suppose you have 4 students in your group. Then you could pick some use cases. Maybe you can pick 1 through 4 and give 1 to each person. Some of them might be simpler than the others, and it doesn't matter much. One person takes 1, the other person takes 2, then third person takes 3, and the 4th person takes 4. And then write out the use cases. Everybody writes the use case and then sends it to the others. And then you have a meeting and see what the use cases look like, whether you would like to revise them. You can set up the process. You can set up a protocol by which you get it all fixed. Once you get a few critical use cases, without enrolling a member and adding products, there is not much you can do with the system. So what I would do is create a minimal system rather than do everything in one fell swoop. Create use cases for a few business processes, maybe half a dozen, not much more than that. You could probably try 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe look at this, enrolling a member, adding products. Then you could also, maybe you can consider listing the members and listing the products. So those are not very difficult things to imagine, you know. So maybe 1, 2, 1, 4, 10 and 11, or 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 10 and 11. Some basic use cases, but without 1 and 4, there is not much you can do with the rest of the system. Without customers and products, you can't really have any other functionality.
We're really supposed to collaborate on the use cases and the sequence diagrams.
Of course, it is a group project, but I would encourage that you have one person take up the main responsibility for a use case and sequence diagrams. Other people can then critique it and then maybe fix bugs or any such deficiencies. It is a group project. We feel free. You must collaborate within the group, but not go outside. Okay. This is a group project, so you must work together within the group. So what I would do is in the first week, get at least 4 or 5 use cases done if you have 4 or 5 members. I don't want any group to have more than 5 members, and no group should have fewer than 3. Okay. So ideal is probably 4 or 5, but not less than 3 or more than 5. And then once you get the use cases all fixed, assuming they are the most fundamental ones, you can draw the sequence diagrams. See, I'm not saying that you should have all the use cases done. Don't do that. That would be a huge mistake, in my opinion. Just do a little part of the system once. First week, get 4 5 use cases. That is eminently doable. In the second week, get the sequence diagrams drawn and then start the implementation for those sequence diagrams. So in about 2-3 weeks, you should have a system running with minimal functionality, like 4 business processes or 5 business processes, but you probably would have done more than half the work needed, because there is so much common stuff that you would have implemented by then, and a good part of it can be borrowed from the library implementation, which I will provide you with. Okay, I will supply that sometime this coming week. And once you have implemented 4 or 5 use cases and they are working, you would be far more motivated, and it would be fairly easy to finish the rest. That is the mode of operation I would suggest. Okay. Now, any questions before we start forming groups? All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to stop recording.